2, 1. Welcome to the Lightforge. This is ADWCTA.
This is Merps. Hope you guys are enjoying your summer. And unlike the past month or so, where we try to teach you things and try to help you get good at the arena, this week we actually have news.
Yes, we're not going to help you get good at all. We're just going to make you happy. And isn't that what getting good is all about? Happiness.
Well, wait. No. That's a tall order. You're basically promising people are going to make you happy.
Okay. If you haven't been paying attention to the news, we will make you happy by telling you the news. We have not done anything ourselves to make you happy.
Okay.
We're just going to take a lot of credit for other people's news and let you guys know if you missed it. And you really wouldn't have if you follow the Hearthstone Reddit at all, because that's all they've been talking about. So let's start off with like the big Blizzard stuff.
Okay, so this is stuff that I think will make everyone happy, right? Oh, happiness. Hey, there you go. You're correct to some extent. Basically, earlier this week, Ben Brode and Blizzard, I don't know why I consider them different things, but
they are different things.
They're
like totally different things.
Yes,
Ben Brode is like Jeff
Kaplan.
They're
yes,
like not Blizzard.
Thank you. Anyways, Blizzard announced that they are making changes to legendaries that you get out of packs and also pack rates. So basically change number 1 is that when you open up new packs from the new expansion, you are guaranteed a legendary in the first 10 packs.
Okay, I'm going to stop you right here. You need to be happier. You need to sound happier. You need to deliver the news happier. Let's try that again, but with more happiness.
All right. Hey guys, what a swell day. Let me tell you about some great news from the best company in the world, Blizzard Entertainment. Yeah. Now, all you swell gals and guys, let me tell you that in the next expansion, when you open up the first 10 great, amazing, fantabulous packs, you're guaranteed a legendary. Wow.
And that means you can get more than one legendary. You're just guaranteed one legendary. You could get like 10 legendaries, 12 legendaries, who knows? But more importantly, more than those 10 packs, what's the second rule? What's the second rule that they announced?
Can I get out of character now? That was really tiring.
Get out of character. That was like that's how tiring it is for me to be happy for like 2 minutes.
I can't be happy, guys. All right, I can't. That's not my natural state. But on top of that, they are changing the way that you acquire legendaries as well. From the next expansion onwards, whenever you open up a legendary, whether it is normal or gold, you will not get that legendary again until you have all the legendaries from the set. So this prevents you from getting duplicates, right? We see a lot of people complaining about
no more duplicates.
They're like, oh man, I opened up 3 Swamp King Dreads, right? Or I opened up like 3 Warlock quests, and it feels bad. We've had a lot of people talking about how expensive the expansions are, how expensive to get into Hearthstone it is in general, and that's just true. That's just true overall. And Blizzard obviously has heard these, and these changes, while perhaps not perfect, do alleviate these problems to some extent. So you're going to get a guaranteed legendary in the first 10 packs, and from this point onwards, no more posts about getting 3 Swamp King Dreads.
So you know what that means? Less dust. Just huge nerf to Hearthstone packs all across the board.
Right. And to some extent, it also changes. I mean, all of these are to make people feel better, right? But it also reduces the feel badness of crafting a card and knowing you're going to open up a lot of packs later, right? There's nothing worse. Okay, there are a lot of things worse in the world. So this is hyperbole, but it feels really bad.
It does.
To craft, let's say, the expansion came out, everyone saw how powerful Quest Rogue was. Right? Man, I want to play Quest Rogue. But in your head, you're always thinking, if I craft it, and I'm going to be opening up a lot of packs in the coming weeks, and then I open up that Quest Rogue, or the Rogue Quest, it feels terrible. Right?
It does. And that's why I haven't done it yet. I haven't been crafting legendaries yet, or any kind of cards, even though I have a whole bunch of dust. Except for what?
You don't need to. You never.
It's the arena. Did you not hear? There are golden cards in the arena now, and it's vitally important to let your opponents know that you have the golden version of any legendary you play. And now I'm going to be able to do it. Now, every time, right before I pick any legendary, I'm going to be able to craft it. Because the rule doesn't extend to non-legendaries, right? Like, not epic cards. It has to be a legendary. Epics can still be duplicated, right?
Right. Guys, so there's also a small rule in that you will never get more duplicate cards in a pack than you can put into a single deck. So what this means is if every single deck you can only have 2 of every single card, right? So you're never going to see the pack with like 3 Ravasaurus runs anymore.
Right.
At max, you'll get 2.
Okay, but like the point is, if it's an epic card and I don't know what's an epic card, like a meteor, and I craft a golden meteor, I can still get like 2 golden meteors in a. You can
still get meteors.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm not crafting golden meteors, but I will be crafting golden legendaries of everything I pick now. So that'll be a change in how I approach the arena, and you guys should too if you don't play constructed, because there's no other use for your dust. So you might as well get the golden legendaries.
Just remember the tale of Merps, who used up 100k dust in like a week, and now is just I am bankrupt. I try
don't do that. Together. Don't do that. Wait for the news to hit where you're never going to get duplicates, and then only make golden versions of those cards.
Yeah.
Although you were a boss for like a week.
A week. This is like one of those sports stars who, after they're out of the sport for like a couple of years, you see they declare bankruptcy. That's basically me. All right. Except my high was a lot lower and my low was hopefully a lot higher. All right. So maybe it's nothing like that. Maybe that was a bad example.
Moving out of Merps' bad analogy, let's talk about what actually has happened into the game of Arena. Because it's not just golden cards. It's not just legendaries. And the legendary changes, if you guys are wondering why it takes Blizzard so long to respond to stuff, like, it's a freaking huge company. And people are always like, oh, it's a huge company. How hard it is to program changes. It's a huge company. So whenever you deal with huge companies, I've dealt with a lot of huge companies in my, like, everyday, like, real world job. There's a lot of hoops to jump through to do anything. And I think this is a good, like, illustration and, like, proof of it, right? Like, if you do Overwatch at all, you'll know that Overwatch had a loot box change too at the exact same time that that Hearthstone announced their loot box change, and it was the same thing except even more extreme. You just can't get duplicates anymore in Overwatch, I think, right? Or is it also legendaries only? Either way, it was some kind of similar, like, no duplicates in loot boxes kind of deal.
Something like that.
So yeah. That's a change that affected 2 games in Blizzard. I'm sure it didn't happen by accident, and it's just reasons why some things are a little slower than we'd like it to be.
Right. So, like ADWCTA says, now let's move on to the meaty arena stuff, right? Mm-hmm. This week, a lot of stuff has happened, and let's go to the beginning.
Step by step. Very first step. Just at the beginning of this week, there was a post on Reddit. Basically, someone said, well, hey, we should stop giving the new expansion cards, talking about Ngoro, this increased offering odds, right? Mm-hmm. They obviously didn't like seeing Ngoro cards that much. And then Ixar, who works at Blizzard, if you guys are not aware, popped in and says, well, this actually happens historically, and it actually has happened for Ngoro. And what has happened historically, meaning it's always been happening for like at least a few expansions, and just no one knew about it.
Yeah, and we've seen it with some expansions, as in we've seen it decrease, right? Like,
no. Karazhan's the only one in which we've seen it decrease, and that's because Blizzard made an announcement. It didn't just decrease; it went away completely. There was no Karazhan bonus after like the 3 or 4 weeks after the last wing release.
Right. So Ixar specifically stated when 8.2 released, we reduced the rate at which Ngoro appeared to 1.5 times as likely.
8.2 was released like the beginning of June.
Yes. So we've been in the new quote unquote meta for quite a few weeks now. And this is something, so it happened, and we're finding out about it now. This is something, that didn't come up in any patch notes. But now we know that Ngoro cards are going to appear and have been appearing much less often. Now that I think back sort of anecdotally, I'm like, that makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah, totally.
People have been actually like kind of like poking at us about it for like the last 2 weeks, and we're like, we have no information about this. They're like, oh, it seems like Ungoro cards. I see less Spike Rich Steeds, stuff like that. And we're like, okay, maybe, I don't know. But now we have like actual Blizzard confirmation of it.
Yeah. So that's the big thing, right? We have confirmation that this has been going down. Now, when this happened, a lot of people, I think, took this and were like, well, let's see if anything else changed, right? Because I know there's been sort of rumblings in the past week that
Warriors got better. We talked about it because like the China stats came out and Warriors went from like 32% win rate to like 38% win rate, like all of a sudden after patch 8.2 or something like that. And people were like, what happened? They had to have done something.
Right. And back then people were just like, well, maybe the stats are a little bit weird. Maybe there's some kind of bias going on here. But then earlier today, Taro469, who is an Infinite player and frequent contributor of articles and write-ups within the Arena community, made this
and
post.
In our chat right now.
And in our chat right now. There, yeah, great, okay. So, way to make me not nervous, man. Now if I misquote...
Yeah, now if you misquote him, he'll know.
I know. Anyways, Taro basically put out this write-up that says there is now an Arena offering bonus on weapons that has already happened, and Blizzard didn't inform us of this. Now, to save you, he did a lot of research. He did a lot of number crunching. But basically, in the end, what he saw was after the change in offering rate, he looked at the popular sort of classes with the weapons as well, right? And he saw the same increase in weapons, but saw no increase in minions. Yep. So there was a certain percentage increase in all weapons. There was no percentage increase in minions, and it was very statistically significant,
yep.
Right?
In fact, it was statistically significant in the same degree that the spell bonus was. Because if you all remember, we currently still have a spell bonus in place where the spells are almost double that of minions in any kind of like expansion. That's just the spell bonus that's always been there. And now weapons have the same bonus as spell bonus.
Yes. So once again, this is I guess number 2 of something that has already happened at some point, right? And based on the HS replay data,
probably 8.2, probably the beginning of June. It's been like
right,
that.
Right. But something has happened, and we were not aware of it as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
And both of these things, the increase in weapons and the reduced offering rate of Ungoro cards, are huge for Arena.
They're ridiculously huge. They changed the entire way the meta is set up, because Ungoro was very specific, right? You had a lot of like tar taunts, you had a lot of taunts period, you had a lot of poisonous minions, you had a lot of small minions with big effects. We did the whole thing when Ungoro was launching. We're like, this is how the meta's going to change. And the meta pretty much changed that way. Well, now it got scaled back by 50% of what the original bonus was. And so that's like 25% overall. And we didn't hear about it, right? Like, not a peep from Blizzard for like weeks. People were rumbling that like something probably has changed, but no confirmations, no anything. And then the weapon change that we have been asking for ever since 7.1, because it never made sense why weapons were not spells for this bonus, especially when Warriors are getting so bad. And it finally happened. And again, no one noticed. I mean, actually, people did notice with Warriors that they're getting better, but no one had like real proof until now, right? And the proof was always there. You just needed someone like Taro to go in and like analyze all the numbers. And now we know, which is good. But like this should not be how communication is happening. We'll get more into Blizzard communication later. But obviously, this should not be how the community finds out about a change in the rules of the game, right? It should not be like 3 weeks after, on a Reddit post somewhere, like someone in the community had to go crunch a whole bunch of numbers, right? Like this is not like how a good game that has a actual community that cares about the game should be dealing with it. The developers should be telling you what changes they make. There are these wonderful things. I think they call them patch bulletins that get released with each patch notes that get released with each patch. And Blizzard does these, and they're really helpful to tell you what happens when each patch comes out. And they go into very minute details and like really random bug fixes and things like that. But apparently Arena's not important enough to say things like Un'Goro set bonus reduced from plus 100% to plus 50%. Weapons now has spell bonus. That's like less than 10 words together.
Anyways, I think both of us definitely want to address the big communication thing, but do you want to first talk about the basically Taro's post has kind of proven that there is a weapon.
There's a weapon bonus, right? I buy it.
So yeah, so let's put aside.
It's not even like before he proved it. Like me and Isher were doing a run earlier in the week, and we were doing a Paladin run, and as we were drafting. That was like when the news first hit, right? That was when XR first made the post that there were all these changes that have actually already happened. And we were like, there's probably a weapon bonus. Like, now that we think back on our experiences in this month so far, we think there's probably a Paladin bonus. And then so we started just like passing up Vine Cleavers. Because I'm like, no. There's going to be a weapon bonus. And so these Vine Cleavers are actually, despite the reduction in Un'Goro cards, there's actually going to be more Vine Cleavers in the meta. Right? And we drafted based on it, and we got offered like 4 Vine Cleavers, and like, thank God we only took 2. So the run went 12, but the point is, the entire time we were reading our opponents, we're always like, wait, but then there's a weapon bonus now. Like, we were just acting as if there was a weapon bonus, knowing nothing about whether that happened or not, just because no one knew anything at that point, right? Like, Ixar just came in and said, everything you thought you knew about the arena has changed. And here's one change, but there may be more.
I had a warrior run recently, right, where I was offered 6 Arcanite Reapers.
Oh God!
I didn't take all of them because you'd never take 6 Arcanite Reapers if you want to win.
Mm-hmm.
But I was going crazy, right? And I was like, oh my God, this is like, what the hell is this? I'm just taking all the weapons.
That's still very unlikely, by the way. Like, think about the number of times you've gotten like 6 Spikered Steeds, and this is like half as likely.
Yeah. But this is also, me thinking back on my experiences with weapons as well. And like one of my previous Paladins, I had double True Silver, 1 Rounding Blade plus a Vine Cleaver, right?
Yep.
And previous to that, like previous to 8.2, that would have been like extremely high roll, like an extreme high roll, right?
Mm-hmm.
You should not get those weapons. And now I'm thinking back, I'm like, yeah, this does make sense. So anecdotally, I'm just like,
But it's such a big change. You can't just not tell people about it. Like, it affected the one draft that I had done like right afterwards, like so much. Just knowing that I think I'm going to get a lot more Vine Cleavers than I thought I was going to get. Right. And then if we had known like, oh, we're going to get less spells than we were going to get, maybe we draft a little differently for like other stuff, or who knows, right? But it affects everything. Like once you know the exact percentages of the offering bonuses. So let's go into how it affects it, right? Let's go into like let's get back to helping you get good in the arena. All right. Let's go back to this, like helping the listener get better in the arena. So there's this change. Un'Goro bonus halved, still a bonus. There's still more Un'Goro cards than other cards, but weapons also getting more. So how is the meta change based on that?
Okay. See, all right. I'm going to be honest here. I came for the drama this week. This is something which like is kind of disappointing. Like we have to talk about it, but I'm going to let you kick it off.
All right, fine. You do the drama afterwards. I will
Nice.
tell people how to play the game. Okay.
Thanks.
So, Un'Goro going away, don't think of it as Un'Goro actually going away. The Un'Goro cards are still in the meta. It has been reduced by half, but the offering bonus was reduced by half. So the actual Un'Goro cards was only reduced by 25%. Is it noticeable? Is it significant? Yes. Does it totally reshape the meta? No. That's why it wasn't like we all woke up in June after patch 8.2 and said like, whoa, what happened to the meta? Because it was only a reduction of 25% offering rate across like, I don't know, like an eighth of the cards or whatever Un'Goro makes up the percentages of. And the Un'Goro theme is not like terribly strong, right? Like there's more taunts, you have higher value generally, poisonous. Like it's not like a GVG or something where like every card seems like it's doing one thing. All right, so the effect isn't terribly strong, but what you're going to see a little bit more of, you're going to see the board loosen up a little bit, because Un'Goro stalled the board a lot. So the board gets a little bit looser, you're going to see less like random minions on the board, you're going to see a little less value per deck. So I had a internal mental thing where I think the average deck had 10 big things, subtracting any like non-card things like Innervate or whatever. And now I may change that to 9. Like, it's not the biggest change, but these are the small changes that you should be like making mentally now that you know this information. The bigger change is to synergies, right? Because inset synergies get affected a lot. And one of the things about inset synergies that get affected is elementals, right? That's your new tribe that came in. And so we have already changed the tier list to adjust for all of this. It was pre-programmed into the tier list. We just had to pull the trigger halfway. We can do this stuff with the tier list pretty easily. So the day after the news came out, tier list was already updated. It's been updated. If you've been using the tier list this week, you've been using the right numbers. And one of the biggest changes, I'm going to drop all the way down to Card Good Bad a little, but biggest changes were to Tovir Stone Shaper, which obviously has a huge bonus for being able to be triggered by the elementals, and for Blaze Caller. They each went down, like, I don't know the exact numbers off the top of my head, but somewhere between like 6 and 8 points. And we'll talk about it a bit later. But so they're not like 6 to 8 points. It's not a game changer in terms of the cards. It doesn't make a good card useless. But it's changed these otherwise, like, cards you really want to try to be hitting. Like, if it's your first pick, you'd want to pick it and then pick a bunch of elementals. Now, to kind of like pretty mediocre cards that you could definitely live without. And unless you have an elemental package, I wouldn't like really touch these cards. So they still average out to be fairly average cards. But now you can really like look at your deck, right? You won't pick these cards and hope to get elementals because they've all dropped in percentages.
Yeah. So I think that's a great sort of foundation and big picture start. What I want to add to that is sort of specific, like specifically for the top classes, how you should view them differently, right? So let's start with Paladins, which a lot of people consider to be either a top class or the top class, right?
Mm-hmm. Before we get into classes, I want to do like a big picture thing about the weapons first, and then you can get into classes. Weapons all have one thing in common. Weapons all have initiative.
Yeah.
Also, most weapons are on-curve plays. They're good on-curve plays.
Yes.
So what this change with the weapons being, because remember, weapons turning into spells isn't a minor change. It means that their offering rates are almost doubled. That's a huge change. So what this means is, for example, if you're like playing Shaman for whatever reason, you have these 2 cards that are basically 3 drops that just got a huge offering rate. And then if you're playing any kind of weapons class, you now have this huge set of cards that all have initiatives taking over spells, which may or may not have initiative, right? Depending on what class you are and what spells you're looking at. So that's a pretty big change for any class with weapons. Any class with weapons now has more initiative and also a better curve. All classes. Exception of Rogue, because Rogue has a weapon that is curved and has initiative anyway. So Rogue aside, any other class that has weapons has this. And Warriors, obviously, they never had spells, really, and their spells were all totally crappy. So this is like a huge change. Huge, ridiculous, game-changing change. So you can go take it away with the actual class balance stuff. But I just wanted to let people know how to think about it.
All right. I think those are good points to keep in mind. Let's start with Paladins specifically, like I said. With Paladins, what does the increase in weapons do for them? Well, unfortunately, Paladin weapons are pretty good, right? As in, True Silvers are pretty good, Rallying Blade is pretty good. So specifically what this does, let's focus on like turn 3. And in one of the past Lightforges, I said, you could really try to capitalize on Paladin's turn 3, right? Now, because of the increased offering rate in weapons, Paladins are more likely to get Rallying Blade on turn 3, which makes their turn 3 stronger. And their ability to keep on snowballing is part of what makes Paladins so strong, right? That loss in the jungle turn 1, and then just any random 2-drop, and then if they can follow it up with Rallying Blade, which should be seen as making the Paladin into the best 3-drop in the game, kind of, right? You're putting down putting down like a 330 minion, kind of. All right, not really. Forget I said that. But
I was about to say, that makes no sense.
Today is just a day of bad Merps analogies. But it holds true that increasing the chances of a Paladin having a strong turn 3 is not good for other classes. And Rallying Blade is really, really freaking good on that turn. What it also means on a general level for Paladins, when they have more weapons, it gives them that late game burst, that push, right? which paladins have a lot of power because of the cards in this expansion. But if there was any sort of weakness, relative weakness of the paladins toolset previously, it was that they had the quote burst in dino size, they had burst in their buffs, but they needed the buff, right? Like they had Divine Cleaver, but that was an expensive weapon. Now they have more frequent and just more ways to get the damage to kill you in the end. And that's sort of a big picture thing that, overall, if you look at this buff, it's pretty freaking good for paladins.
Yep. Very good for paladins. Good for all classes with weapons, because weapons are good, right? Good for shamans, good for hunters, especially hunters with weapons. Hunters love weapons.
Oh, eagle horn bows.
Like, they just go face if nothing else.
I will say, I will not agree with every aspect of that statement, because I think this does not benefit rogue.
Well, yeah, right, but that's because they have weapons anyway. So offering bonus to weapons isn't really a thing.
Right. The weapons that they get are not actually that good. Like draft.
Yeah. Instead, their weapon buffs are better, and they didn't get a bonus. So if anything, rogues may have gotten a bit worse. But think about Hunter. Think about Hunter and how yes, their curves are a little weaker now than they used to be, because Ungoro was really good for curve. But that weapon bonus, oh my god, that weapon bonus. And remember, everyone has less taunts now. Everyone has less taunts, and you have more weapons.
Yeah.
Hunters, back. And whenever classes get better, other classes get worse, right? So mages are now worse. Mages relied a lot on the elemental package, so that got a lot worse. Shamans are a little more balanced because they also sort of relied on an elemental package. They don't have the Steam Surger card, right? That was so good. But now their Stone Sentinels are barely draftable, right? And now their other elemental package that they can put a lot of elementals and then use the Tovirs, use the Blaze Callers are just a little less good. I think it's more than made up for by the weapons, but that's just me. Because shamans have good weapons, especially those turn 3 weapons. They're
they do
pretty board controlling. And then warriors obviously got a huge bump up. I no longer think warriors are arena warriors matter borderline levels of bad anymore, right? I think they're just now the worst class. That's it.
Yeah. And there's a huge difference between being the worst class and being dumpster level.
Yeah.
Right.
Before, warriors were pointless to play them except as a meme. Now it's just a handicap.
Yeah. Now it is, when you play it, you're playing still the worst class, but we've always said this, there has to be a worst class. There's always a worst class, but you just don't want the worst class to have a chasm between it and the other classes, or even the second to last class.
And you feel it as the warrior too now, right? Because keep in mind, when you take away Ungoro, which does not have a 2-drop for the or a 1-drop for the warrior, when you take away that bonus, you now have increased all their actual 1-drops and 2-drops, even if they're neutral. And you've increased their weapon offering rates. And what weapons do warriors have? Fiery War Axe, which is a 2-drop. So warriors didn't just benefit from having better cards seen more often. They didn't just benefit from having more initiative, which they've always struggled with. They didn't just benefit from having more synergy, because they have a lot of weapon synergy. They didn't just benefit from having opponents have less taunts, because, taunts are pretty bad to deal with for a warrior. They didn't just benefit from having relatively bad Ungoro cards being seen less often. They benefited from having a better curve, which is what they really, really needed.
Oh my god. I don't know how much longer I could have taken.
I could have gone on. This meta just got so much more favorable to the warrior. So now I think it's pretty telling about how much better the warrior got, and it is still the worst class. That should tell you all you needed to know about playing warrior before June.
It was really bad. It was really, really bad. And especially, seeing 4 sudden Genesis being offered to you and 3 Explore Ungoros, and you're just please no. Please not like this, right? But anyways, the weapon changes are here, and it's something very important. Big picture, aggro is definitely a little bit stronger, and how you deal with the top classes becomes a little bit different. And if there's one tip, it's go try Hunter again.
Mm-hmm.
Weapons in Hunter are amazing, and now that you don't have those tar creepers ruining your day, just hit them in the face, man.
Mm-hmm. Hunters and paladins, they're definitely the ones on the rise right now.
Which kind of sucks, because paladins sort of hard counter hunters.
Yes. Yes,
So,
they do.
you know, still play Hunter. Look, I just like playing Hunter. I want to see other Hunters in the arena, but do know that people have caught on that Paladin is really, really freaking good, and you are climbing a severe uphill battle whenever you're facing Paladin as a Hunter.
Yep. Okay, so now that we've gone over that, let's go. That's the stuff we know that's happened.
Yep.
All right, let's go into the stuff that we don't know what's happened, but has happened anyway. So, what is there now?
Right. Okay. So, in the same sort of in the same thread post, or the thread that has the post. I don't know. How do you say that?
I don't know.
I have no idea. Anyways, Ixar also said they were thinking of lots of small tweaks, right? Or that he said there are a lot of small tweaks going on in the background with the hope we can gather enough data to be confident enough to make a larger scale change. And he talks about sort of what you say as like micro adjustments, right? And we don't get a lot of information on it, you know.
Okay, but the way that he's saying this, like literally, there are a lot of small tweaks going on in the background.
Right.
Like it seems like these tweaks already happened, maybe, right? Because it's with the hopes that we can gather enough to make a larger scale change. So I don't know, and he's specified, right? We're talking 1 to 5% in most cases.
Yes.
So it feels to me, because he's not really totally clear with this. Right? In order to execute on a long-term solution for arena balance, we've been making very small changes that have an extremely low chance to be noticeable from a single player's perspective, but gather enough data for us to see the overall effect on class win rates. So I think they're already in the arena. I think these small changes are live with the with the whatever patch that happened at the beginning of June.
Right. And if there are these changes, it would, because what Taro was able to sort of mine and discover was it's something that is very noticeable, right? Like a huge weapons buff, and then he, you know, through the process, you can very confidently say this has happened. If we are talking about something
like 1 to 5% changes, you can't find that. You can't find that.
There's no way you can find that. So I don't know. Like you know, we're talking about two things that we know that has happened. So the change in offering rate that has come from Ixar and been confirmed. The weapons offering rate that hasn't come from Blizzard, but I trust Taro's, you know, math and him having done the homework.
And HS replays data is large enough that I think it's good.
Yeah, and I've read through his methodology, and it doesn't seem like there's really another way to interpret it.
Right.
So I will say that that is confirmed. And then we have this stuff that is just up in the air. I have no idea, right? We can try to speculate on it, but I just don't know what's going on.
Yeah. Now, the thing with micro adjustments is, let's say, and the way they're trying to use it is like, let's say Warrior sucks. Let's give all of its weapons an additional 5%. Let's give Arathi Weaponsmith an additional 5%, and stuff like that, right? And let's say, like, Rogue is too good. You know, let's reduce Envenom Weapon by 5%. Let's reduce Eviscerate by 5%. You know, all of that stuff, and it all kind of adds up, right?
Yeah.
Like, you do something like that, and then you can definitely change how good a class is. Does it affect the way you play the game? It should, but only in very like small ways, right? Because are you really going to treat a rogue differently if you're playing around Eviscerate if it's 5% less frequently seen, right?
Yeah,
like,
it's like yes and no. More like yes, but like not really.
Right. And if you so. It's questionable whether that would actually affect how you would approach the game or how you would approach the draft, because I don't know if anyone really thinks that minute in like 5% increments, but it does mean that we don't really know what's happening right now.
Yeah.
And it's already happened.
Ooh, it's like some Twilight Zone kind of stuff.
So we are currently not playing the game that we think we're playing.
Yeah. So, look, now is when we address the big thing about, and this is something that we've talked about for so long. Oh my gosh. Blizzard communication, or lack thereof, right? It's something that we addressed when they made the big sort of 7.1 change, right? And it's something that we've addressed before that as well, in terms of like but not a lot of stuff has happened. So in terms of communication, it's basically been this year in which there has been a lot of changes. But I think it's fair to say that from these incidents, or this one collective incident, and the past, Blizzard communication has, not many people are happy. You see the replies to that thread with Ixarnet, and a lot of people are just like, why didn't you tell us about this stuff, right? Like, these are some big changes. We would appreciate like you letting us know about this. People don't like being left in the dark for this stuff. And I don't know. What do you think? I have too many thoughts swirling in my head right now.
I don't have a lot of thoughts. I think people should tell us. I don't know how much simpler it can get. We are playing a game which has rules. If you want to be able to take the game seriously, you need to tell. Like, you gotta have rules. What is a game? Like, fundamentally, what is a game? A game is the interaction of a series of rules. That is all a game is.
Right.
Now, if you don't tell us what these rules are, that's not a very good game. Or at least, that's not a very good competitive game. I'll rephrase that.
Yeah.
It could be a very good game if we don't know the rules and the game is to figure out the rules or whatever, right? Like, that's totally cool. A lot of games are actually structured like that. But that's not what a competitive game where you're facing another player is. In all the competitive games where you're facing another player, you guys need to know the rules or you can't get better at the game.
Yeah. No, I think you bring up a great point. And my stance on sort of the future of Arena, right? Even between two of us, we have slightly different visions. I've always wanted it to be a little bit more competitive, right? And although I understand that might not be Blizzard's goal for it, but yeah, this is very, like, I worry about this a lot because this is leading Arena away from any sort of competitive future.
Yeah.
You can have a game that's based on RNG. You can have a game that, has...
But you have to know the RNG. Like, why is poker a game of skill? Because people know the RNG in poker.
Right.
What's the first thing everyone does whenever Blizzard releases RNG? Is to try to figure out if Blizzard is actually using real RNG. Remember when Discover first came out? And then people realized that you get offered more class cards than you get offered regular cards. And then Blizzard said, yeah, you do. And then didn't tell people the number. And then people started like just literally like running instances of Discover repeatedly to like figure out what the actual percentage was. That's what people do because they're competitive. And in order to like truly play a game well, you need to know the rules. So step one is understanding the rules. And you can play this game, right? That Blizzard's playing, which is like, let's just do stuff and see what happens. But all that is it's pushing the burden onto the community to figure out what the rules are. And when you make it, like the 0 to 5% adjustments especially, like the community can't figure that out.
Yeah.
So now you're at a point where you actually just don't know the rules. This isn't like the weapons change or the set bonus change, in which even if you don't tell people, they'll eventually figure it out. And that's bad enough that they're playing a different game than they thought they were playing for a few weeks. But to be able to do that in a way that the community really can't figure out because we don't have perfect data, it undermines the whole entire concept of playing a game seriously. It means you can only play the game seriously up to a certain point. And past that point, you can't play it seriously anymore.
Right. And I think this affects a really wide range of players, right? I don't think you can just look at this and be like, well, this is just for the min-maxers. I know that personally.
Everyone's a min-maxer.
Yeah, I mean, everyone's a min-maxer to some extent.
To some extent.
But also,
you could be like a 10% min-maxer. But as long as you care at all about whether you're doing well or not, and you look for ways to do better in a game, then you are somewhat of a min-maxer.
Right. And I think universally, when rules are hidden from you in a game, or just like information in which it is just like not disclosed to you, it feels bad, right? Like there is this...
Well, because you can't improve.
Right. It makes you feel bad. And I know that like for like if I were to play a game, and even if I'm not that serious about it, just the fact that, I can't access some things makes me feel bad, right? Like I might not go access it and like learn everything, but the fact that I can't access it makes me feel...
It means that I can only get invested into a certain percent, and then I won't be able to go forward anymore, which cuts down on my investment, right? Like, if I can't get very deep into this game ever, even if I don't want to right now, then why would I play this game and not some other game, right? That fulfills a very basic tenet of the developers telling you what the rules of the game are. Like, I don't know. And when we say, like, I say, like, everyone's a 10% min-maxer, I don't mean everyone, but I mean, like, the most players, even the casual players. Because if you're trying to win, then you are min-maxing something, right? Otherwise, what are you doing? If you're really just doing what you feel like and you're not trying to win, then you're just trying to have fun, or whatever it is that you do. Like, you're playing the prettiest card, or, you know, you're making the first move that comes to your head or whatever. But if you try to put any strategy into what is fundamentally a strategy game, then you are min-maxing something. That's what I mean. Everyone is a min-maxer to some way. And cutting out the final piece of the ability to min-max doesn't cut down on the top-level people. Like, trust me, I will do my best to find out what each percent on each card is in the offering rate when it comes out. But the people who... I think it's, like, probably most of our audience... or at least a sizable minority, they're going to be the ones that are left behind because they're going to reach a wall in which they're not going to go there, right? Like, ADWCTA may be insane and memorize 3,000 pieces of micro data and then try to apply it into his gameplay, but that's crazy and stupid and not fun. Like, I could just see that.
I think those words describe you very well.
Right, but I can just see that. And so now there's this gulf. And I like, you know, I don't like... The point of why we do everything, right, is try to teach people and make them do better in the arena and have more fun.
Yeah. So I think this week, look, we got some great information. We have, you know, thanks to Taro sort of digging, we have more confirmation about some of these changes. And then we have this fuzziness, right? Like, I don't know what exactly is going on in the past, present, or future. And it just goes back to sort of the communication that we're all hoping will improve.
Because just tell us what's going on. You have patch notes. That's what they're for. That's literally what they're for.
So look, at this time, I will say I appreciate the fact that things are moving and shaking in the arena, right? I feel like I have to say this every single time.
Okay,
because
the moves, no, but like seriously, the actual substantive adjustments are all good. And they're all like universally good. Like, no one would criticize these changes. So it's even more crazy that they didn't announce these changes, right? Like, the weapons change has been something the community's been asking for a long time as, like, the basic step. Like, we don't like, or a large part of the community doesn't like the spell changes. But even if you are going to do the spell changes, everyone agrees that weapons changes should happen.
Yep.
Right? Like, and the set bonus being reduced, I don't think anyone's really against that, because, especially after a while of Ongoro.
Right, right.
Like, these are just... It's like Blizzard's coming and doing things and helping the arena, and then, like, not taking credit for it even, while putting themselves into a hole by not communicating it to us. Like, it just makes no sense on any level why this is happening.
It is indeed very curious. But that's what it is, and, you know, we've been talking about glass half empty. I guess the half full is, well, we do have that information now, and now all of you guys listening have that information. So use it, you know, use it to your advantage. And what you don't know for now, which is kind of what you have to take away from this week, which makes me feel not so great.
Nope. Things are happening in the background that we don't know about, that Blizzard's not telling us. And, but hey, at least we know more now, thanks to Ixar's confirmation and Taro's analysis of HS replay stats. At least we know now more than we did before. So that's good. But I don't know. It feels bad to be playing a game under assumptions that were wrong. Because it's a strategy game, and it means I've been playing it very suboptimally. Which makes sense, because I've been doing like crap this month, so now I at least have an excuse.
Okay.
I was actually playing a different game than I thought I was playing.
Game.
I was, and my stats reflect that.
Right. Sounds good.
Okay. Question from the GOAT. What do we have?
Question from the GOAT comes from our Twitter. We're going to try to do this more often. You know, feel free to tweet us. If you have a question from the GOAT, we're going to try and make it exclusively viewer-based now, instead of my dumb questions that, you know, I have to think of. But anyways, this week comes from at Feels Bad A-Bomb. Great name, by the way. Feels Bad A-Bomb asks, should Blizzard lower the chance to get Flappy Bird, which is Vicious Fledgling, like Flame Strike? And this is a question and a sentiment that's been, you know, kind of shared on Reddit, in our chat. We see it in a lot of places. where there's a lot of
Flappy Bird is the best card in the game.
There's been a lot of strong emotions to
Why would you
Flappy
take
Bird.
a Spiker Steed over a Flappy Bird?
So I'll give my opinion first. Like, do I think all right, I'll call it Vicious Fledgling. All right, I always call it Flappy Bird, but do I think Vicious Fledgling is good card design? No. Do I think that it is healthy? Like, very healthy, as in its inclusion made the game better or didn't make it worse? Like, no. I don't think that. However, do I think that it should get a lower offering odd? I'm like, I think it's okay. Like, and it's not because, it's like, oh, it's a perfectly fair card. It's because there's just actually a lot of cards that are as, quote, problematic as Flappy Bird.
How many cards exist in the game where if you don't remove it from the board, you will lose? Because that's the problem with Flappy Bird, right? You don't remove it, you will lose. And the problem with Flappy Bird goes one step further, where if you don't remove it, it gets harder to remove half the time.
And I would say that a card like Vicious Fledgling is on a better tier than some other cards. For example, and this is one that I've said throughout, I think in terms of problematic, not strong, but problematic card is Blood Knight, right? Blood Knight is one of those cards in which you have no ability to play around. Like, it just offers you no option at all, right? At least with Vicious Fledgling, there is, you can calculate the percent chance that they only get like the death rattle or only get cannot be targeted, right? Or something that is not so bad for you. With a card like Blood Knight or like, BGH to some extent, Big Game Hunter, these are cards that you just are never able to play around, and then you get tons of stats, right? You get a huge swing from that. I think that tier of cards, I'm not saying they're as powerful, but I think that sort of card design and implementation is worse than something like a Vicious Fledgling.
Yep.
So, look, I know a lot of you guys don't like Vicious Fledgling. I don't either, except when it's on my side, then I love it, and it goes off. And I don't think it's great card design, but if you want to do this with Vicious Fledgling, then I think you need to address a lot of stuff with it. Because in terms of card or game design or game changes, I don't like using a very, kind of using a very pinpoint solution when there's all these other problems as well. It just makes the game sort of, I think it makes the focus of the game kind of bad. And it also feeds into sort of whoever yells the loudest and the loudest opinion sort of just
Abyssal Enforcer needs to go away.
Right, exactly like that. But yeah, let's make this clear. I do not think it is good card design, and I don't think it has made the arena better or, moved it laterally. I think it has made it a little bit worse, but I don't think we should go as far as to remove it or put the Flame Strike treatment on it.
Yep. Okay. Well, that's Question from the Goat. Question from the Goat brought to you by our patrons. Patreon.com/grinninggoat. Go check it out. Thank you guys so much. Thanks for feeding the goat. And we're gonna wrap this up with Card Good Bad, and then we're not really gonna talk about Mage. There's not much to talk about besides that it got worse. But let's just kind of wrap it together in this whole like elemental package. Elementals in the new meta, a lot less. If you were going to see elementals, you're going to see 75% of them, the ones that you used to. And the ones that are affected by them are much less the elementals themselves and much more the things that get triggered by the elementals. So Tolvir Stoneshaper is a big one. It used to be one of the near premium cards, especially for Mage, because you would be able to get your elemental package. It would be a 3/5 for 4 mana with a Divine Shield, which means it should actually cost even more than 5 mana, looking at Cyclotron here.
And it has taunt.
And it has taunt, yes. Blazecaller was the other one. That one is just a better Firelance Portal, if you can get it to trigger the right way. And they all got pretty high ratings. And they were all programmed, even from the get-go, that whenever Ungoro bonus disappears or something else happens, their ratings would drop. So they've dropped halfway to wherever you wanted them to drop. And let's just look at Tovir Stone Shaper, which used to be like 115, I think, or 114, some number around there. But Tovir Stone Shaper is now a 103, which is barely above average if it's like your first pick or you have the like normal amount of elementals for a normal deck. And for a mage, it is still 119. That means for a mage, it is still very good. Now, it's no longer better than, like, let's say a Steam Surger, for example, or a Dark. I'm sorry, it's still better than a Steam Surger or a Dark Iron Dwarf, but it's now no longer better than a Water Elemental. Like, he used to be that good of a card, Tovir.
Yeah, and this was all based on you getting the number of elementals, right? And when you got those elementals, you just snowball and you just pretty much freaking win the game. Like the Divine Shield taunt has ended many of my Hunter runs, sadly. Very, very sadly. Anyway, sorry. That was just me, like, with the Hell of Darkness, my old friend, replaying in my mind.
Okay. So now, how do we play Mage now? Now knowing that your Elemental package got a little weaker.
Look, for a lot of your Elemental cards, you still draft them, right? Is Firefly still good? Yeah, Firefly is still a good card because it shores up your early game. Tar Creeper, you're still picking. The Frozen Crushers, you're still picking. Firepoint Phoenix, yes. It's the receivers, right? It definitely changes the way that you draft, especially in the early few picks. Now, if you see the Tovir Stone Shaper, if you see the Blaze Caller in the earlier picks, it definitely changes your evaluation there. And in terms of playing, well, that depends on the end deck that you get. But what you're sort of aiming for now, you're definitely not aiming for the elemental control mage. It's mostly just control mage, right? And you have to be sort of aware of that. But I don't think it changes a lot of the cards that you want to draft just because there are so many elementals that are objectively, independently good.
Yep. It's true. And if you are a mage, you're still going to take like Steam Surgers and your Tovirs when they come, which means your elementals are still good, right? Like even your like Fireflies, they're still good. The real change when it comes to elementals is when it comes to other non-elemental classes, because it's kind of dropped them below this critical line of a difference between a good card and a somewhat situational card. Like there's a drop between like 108 and 100 is a much larger drop than between like 128 and 120, right? Like it's the same like raw amount of drop, but in the middle, practically speaking, you're faced with many more decisions where your other card is going to be in the range of 108 to 100 rather than in the range of 128 to 120.
Yeah, it's the density of the zones.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's a good way to put it. It's the density of the zones. So for a lot of the mage cards, the zone in which these elemental cards have fallen is not very dense. Like Blaze Caller is still a 121, right? Like it dropped quite significantly, like 8 points, I think. But now it's like, what cards surpass it now? No other epic cards, Like that's where we're at. You have Volcanossaur and Bog Creeper that was in that zone, but no other epic cards. Now Charged Devilsaur is definitely better if it's like first card or something like that. But cool. It's one of those things. So it doesn't affect Mage actually as much, except it makes Mage worse. But it doesn't affect how you play Mage. It doesn't affect how you play against Mage. What it does affect is all those other classes, where when you're drafting, you're going to rely a little less on Elementals. Like, Elementals for other classes were always kind of a little bit of a risk. Now it's quite a significant risk to go there.
Yep. So that's it. Hopefully you guys had your fair share of elemental fun at the beginning of the meta, because now it is much harder to make that insane elemental deck. Although if you make it now, you'll make people even angrier because they're less likely to see it. So there is that upside. But that's kind of how it is. Just be aware of it. But don't, it's not gloom and doom for elementals just because Blizzard has made the elementals independently good.
So that's it for this week. Next week is technically Lightforge 100. Lightforge 100.
Did we decide what we're doing with it?
And who's not going to be here for Lightforge 100?
There's some handsome guy.
This Merps guy is going to be on vacation for Lightforge 100, so we don't really know what we're going to do with Lightforge 100. We kind of want to do it live, but we also kind of want to get it out on time. So you may find a really awkward, like Lightforge 99.5 coming out.
I know, but you got to do what you got to do.
Or Lightforge 100 will just be a pre-recorded Lightforge to the disappointment of all of our live fans. But if you're listening to this on podcast or on YouTube, you should not mind. So we'll see. We'll see what happens there. But anyway, thank you guys for staying with us for so long. We have done one Lightforge every single week since it started. So this is quite literally almost the 2-year anniversary now. Okay. Until next time, this is ADWCTA.
This is Merps. See you guys.
Cool.